I hope you're centered. I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Carlos, for that.
Let's welcome our panel. You have the floor, Mr. Marcus.
Speak up, TJ. Did you hear that, Mr. Marcus?
Yeah, I heard my name. Is this my time to introduce myself?
Yes, sir, it is.
Perfect. First, I want to start by saying a couple things. One, Mr. Carlos Sneed, that was extremely powerful, and I appreciate you for that. Very poetic. Two, just want to thank everybody for coming out and showing your commitment to the message that we're trying to share today. And Jonathan Jones, it's an honor to be here to moderate the panel. I am the executive director of Black Men Teach. I'm also a fifth grade science teacher as well. And so education is my passion, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to come here and share a little bit with you all. I think at this point, now that the screen's not shared anymore, we advise you all to go to speaker mode. And then in speaker view, it's in the top right corner where you kind of see what looks like the action sign. And that way you will be able to see who's talking. The next person we'll invite to introduce themselves is Mr. Abdul Wright.
Good evening, beautiful people. I am honored to be here. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Neal. Thank you, everyone who is on this live with us tonight. I'm just honored to be here, share space with us, continuing to grow. Shout out to my man up there with Dr. Jones, my man's son. Like, that was a great reading, very articulate young brother. Appreciate you, big dog. So it's just an honor to be here. I'm excited for the conversation, and let's keep it moving. On to Brother Shad Williams. I see you getting the glasses right. I didn't mean to throw you off like that, bro.
You did throw me off. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shad Williams. I am a second grade teacher at a science and engineering campus. So I have second graders. It is very thematic, as you can all well imagine. But these babies are super excited to learn. I'm super excited to be here to be able to encourage and support you all in any way, shape, or form I can.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Asin Osai. I'm currently serving as the superintendent of St. Louis Park Public Schools, and I just want to echo all of the sentiments of gratitude and excitement to be here this evening. And Brother Sneed, that grounding exercise, I mean, you got me so excited over here. There's just so much connection to what you offered us, and I can't wait to engage in this discussion and just unpack that even further. But Brother Jones, thank you for your leadership in this area and bringing us together. And thank you, Dr. Neal and Hamline University, for providing this opportunity. And I just look forward, and I'm excited about the opportunity tonight.
And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Brother Osai, I'm going to throw the first question back to you. And the question is, how did you decide to become an educator?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, Brother Flynn. And, you know, so for me, it wasn't something that during my undergrad experience that I knew I wanted to do. Actually, it was the furthest thing that I ever expected. And I'm a firm believer in my steps being ordered in life, and that, you know, I may have a plan, but God has a different plan for me. And I ended up actually during my senior year at the University of Minnesota, having an opportunity to do some substitute teaching at a parochial school in the Highland Park area of St. Paul. And from the very first moment that I set foot in that building and had an opportunity to engage with those high school students, I fell in love and ended up going back to school and became a teacher at that school, a physical education and a health teacher at that school before moving to other school districts. So it wasn't something that I planned or ever thought that I would do. And it was something that, you know, as a man of faith, that God had a plan for me and laid out the path. And I ended up stumbling upon something that has, you know, changed my life forever.
That's a phenomenal answer. Shad, Abdul, y'all will hop in whenever.
All right, I'm gonna come off. I was waiting to see if he was gonna come off mute. I saw you ready. Um, what brought me to education is life. You know, I come from the very neighborhoods that we educate in, and so for me, it's bigger than education. It's bigger than school. You know, like this is about purpose. This is about impact. This is about serving. This is about honoring our truths. And so for me, you know, learning this language, this humanizing language now, I'm able to reflect back on the beginning of my journey and see that, you know, there was just so much collective solidarity around my path that aligned in a way in which I ended up saying one day, like, man, I really love giving back. I really love being able to be a part of changing the trajectory of young people's lives. And I want to be able to do that in a way in which we can help them open doors. And to me, knowing my own journey, I know that the only way I had out of my neighborhood was through education. And I wouldn't have been exposed to opportunities if it wasn't for education. And so I wanted all young people to have those same opportunities that I had. And so I said, you know what? I want to go into the classroom. This how it be. I feel like Shad just froze. Oh no, like this like a Zoom class for real.
Shad, you want
Did
to
you
go ahead
want me
and
to go
answer?
next?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start when it comes to why I became an educator. I do not know where to start. Um, so uh, education has always been like my safe haven from a child who has been in, unfortunately, in utilized in the system of the foster care system. School system has always been like my safe haven. So I wanted to assure that each child a fair opportunity within the education system to have that safe space. I wanted to be able to provide that, allot that, because for me, school was a fun, fair, and consistent for me. I was encouraged by my mother because I'm adopted. So I was encouraged by my mother. My mom said, you know, they need male teachers, and she wasn't even bringing in race. She was just bringing in just male teachers. We need men in the classroom. And I said, Mom, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know. Mom was like, but Shad, I think you should do it. I really think you should do it. I think you should try it out. Well, and I hate to steal a quote from the help, but it was then and there when I got the opportunity to go into a classroom and support my mother in her classroom. And it was just so amazing to see the joy and the impact. I'm naturally high energy, so the kids really respond well to me. And I just get entertained by their life. They're entertained by my life. It's very outstanding to see that something as simple as a jump can outstand a child. And so it's been very, very entertaining for me to be in the classroom, be able to be super supportive. But if it hadn't been for my mama, I don't know if I really would have went into education, but I knew that I wanted to be in some capacity within the school. I know I wanted to be a teacher. I know exactly what I was going to be, but I ended up being a teacher and I've loved it ever since. So it was a great opportunity for me.
We all understand that education can be inherently challenging, so it's important to be grounded in an extremely strong why. So no surprise that all of you had compelling answers. But that also leads me to the next question. What challenges have you been faced with? So what are the biggest challenges you've been faced with and how have you overcome them?
Who wants to go first on that one?
That one, let's go with Shad, since you already on the floor, let's go with you first.
Well, I think that maybe many of us can attest to this. Being the first or the only has its own weights and barriers. I have been on a plethora of campuses, being the only African American male teacher or African American teacher. So that has been a major challenge. And so I that's why I really wanted to join this panel and encourage others to please join us in this education fight. We need the representation out there. Yeah, but definitely being the first or the only, even on my campus right now, I'm the first in 20 years to have for them to have a black, or just have a black teacher, period. Have to be a male. It was a black teacher in 20 years since the school's been open. They've never had a black teacher. So being the first has its own challenges.
And Shad, I really appreciate what you offered, this idea of being the first to only, for me, the way I describe it is this, hyper visibility and invisibility at the same time has been and continues to be a challenge for me as a Black male educator. And, within that comes, with the hyper visibility comes all sorts of aggressions. And I don't use the term microaggression because there's nothing micro about the things that we as Black male educators experience in education and settings. And, I would say so that hyper visibility and invisibility continue to be a challenge, but also for me, a challenge that I, as a superintendent, that I struggle with every single day is to know that as a Black male, I'm leading a system that is still utilizing practices that are inherently racist and not being able to change the trajectory of that at a pace that's fast enough for those being harmed, but the pace is too fast for those that are standing in the way of that change. So that continues to be a challenge for me. So those are just a couple of things, certainly more, but I know Brother Wright has plenty to share in this area as well.
Well, since you teed it up for me, I couldn't agree more with what both of these brothers said. To me, the biggest challenge that I see is one, everything within education is just the realization that we are in a system. And so then when you say what system, if you acknowledge that we're in a system, what type of system are we in? We're in an oppressive system. And then what is the root of this oppressive system? It's patriarchy, it's white supremacy, and these are oppressive systems that are grounded in capitalism. And so if we look at us as being educators with it operating within an oppressive system, we have to say that if the system is designed to keep those marginalized and to keep those down, it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. And more importantly, the gatekeepers who are in charge or who are continuing to be the leaders of these oppressive systems don't want it to change. That was evident with our switch during the pandemic from being in the building to virtual. They literally tried to tell us to do the very same things that we were doing in the building and do it online. Whole time knowing those systems don't work. Whole time knowing those systems have failed our Black and brown babies. Whole time knowing that our students struggle without the proper supports, yet do the same because it's convenient. And when you recognize that these systems operate out of a place of convenience and benefiting those who already are those who are more well off and those who come from fortune and privilege and who are the beneficiaries of racism, you see ain't nothing gonna change. And so you recognize that and you say, okay, if these systems are designed to be exactly how they are, we have, as Black educators, 3 options. You either buck the system and say, I'm not a part of that. And you do everything to fight against that and be a co-conspirator in the abolishment of that. Or you say, I'm a part of the system and I'm gonna just get by, or you leave. Those are the 3 options that we have as Black educators. And when you realize that, it becomes a burden that becomes incredibly taxing, and you recognize our place in it and that we're really in a war against oppression.
Hey, B, I think that's a really compelling answer, man. So I think as Black men working within the system, we all recognize like it has its challenges, and we're here because we're actively looking to make change. But at the same time, us as individuals, it's not fully our responsibility to make this happen. One of the largest pieces of the system is the teacher prep program, right? And so the next question that I have for you all, and then AB, I'm actually going to start with you, is how can university programs better support pre-service teachers as they complete their programs?
Acknowledge what's going on in the world. Acknowledge the environment that our young people are exposed to in the society in which they live, and recognize that education should be political. because everything in life is political, and we're operating as educators in political systems that are designed to oppress the most marginalized. So if we have teacher preparation programs that are now starting to say, you know what, and this is for everybody on here, if I'm a white person learning in a white program, I need to recognize my implicit racism. I need to recognize my privilege. I need to know that. And I need to make sure that I'm doing everything in my process to unlearn and become more aware of that. And as superintendents, as leaders of these teacher preparation programs, own that you have to be a co-conspirator in abolishing these oppressive systems in a way in which we create curriculum that is designed for Black and brown children, that we create curriculum that is designed for our LGBTQ community, that we create curriculum that is designed for the most marginalized groups of people, because we all are operating and have been inflicted by these white supremacist systems that continue to keep things the way they are, status quo. And so if teacher preparation programs start to recognize, hey, this is the world that we live in, I need to now help young teachers, especially Black teachers, be unapologetically them, come to these spaces as themselves confidently, then we start to change those trends, and we start to help prepare educators for what's really going on in these classrooms and what's really going on in the world.
Yeah, that's it right there. As I appreciate those comments, and as I was reflecting on the question, for me is this work is both personal and professional. So as I think about what teacher prep programs need to do, for me, I start off right away. You can't be an educator of a teacher prep program and not do your own work around racial consciousness, cultural relevancy, or any of that, right? So you can't show up in front of your students at the university and tell them to, love and humanize kids in one breath, and then in your personal life, you got your hood on and marching with your tiki torch, right? You can't do that, right? So where it has to start is personally for the people that are leading the teacher prep programs, where they got to do their own work and understand who they are racially and culturally and work towards proficiency in other races and cultures. And then and only then will they be able to engage educators, future educators, in a truly authentic way that will allow them to humanize Black, brown, and indigenous students in classrooms when they get the opportunity to do that, right? So I appreciate what Brother Wright said, and I would say, first and foremost, in those teacher prep programs, the people leading those have to do their own work personally, so that they can truly do it authentically, professionally.
Shad, did you want to comment on this one too, bro?
I want to say it's very difficult to follow follow behind Mr. Wright. He kind of just painted the whole picture. So I'll just try to do my little touch ups within there. But he did such a decent job, and then you have the superintendent. I mean, it's hard to follow. Maybe I should go first next time. Ultimately, I just think that everybody just needs to be ready to have an open and genuine conversation, and be prepared to get involved in whom the audience is. And so I think that when we are prepared to do that, we could be as a whole a better. But I think that there is still a slight divide, no matter how much you want to look at it. It seems like as we go throughout our day to day, that more lights are turning on for other areas and other categories. Like, oh wow, we got an issue here, we got an issue here, this issue still here, and we put a wall up instead of, but the light is still on. We still have an issue. And so I think just understanding that, a majority of us out here are trying, and that we need to have that open door for open conversation. And I think that as long as others, and that's everyone, and I don't want to just strictly lean on one cohort, or I want to put on everybody. As long as everybody's willing to have that conversation and have a genuine conversation about what's truly going on, I think that we can progress forward. So right now, I think often we have a this and we don't have a this. And so, but I feel that, my teacher program was not as difficult. I had a little bit of a decent time going through, but I do know that other people have different stories and different lived experiences, and so I respect that, and I allow those experiences to be well heard, because they are valid. Just because I didn't experience it doesn't mean it's not real. And so I think that ultimately, and when if other people can speak just like I just did and say, you know what, I'm sorry that you had that experience. I cannot attest. What happened and how can we fix this? When you address it like that, I tell you, it's just like lots of Oprah called the aha moment, where we can just move forward and progress and be a better person. But if we continue to shut each other's lived experiences down, we're going to stay stagnant.
Marcus, may I add one more thing? And it speaks to just how powerful your statement was, Shad. Like, that was very beautiful, bro. And it just speaks to the biggest piece of teacher preparation programs, recognizing that teachers of all levels, first year, second year, it don't matter what acknowledgments or how you identify, like, your voice is just as important as anyone else's. And you have ideas that are meaningful and have the ability to be a part of the abolishment of these oppressive systems. And so recognizing that from day one, that your voice matters, it allows you to take a sense of ownership over that. And you're just as important in this. And I enjoyed just what you said.
So I think something that we have talked around, right? And not saying that we're actively avoiding it, but it's just not something we've explicitly addressed yet, is this following question. And it's really, how does white supremacy show up in your work? I'll start this one with Brother Osai.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question, Brother Flynn. And, I'll be the first to say, as a Black male educator, there's no way you can ascend to the role of superintendent without somehow internalizing whiteness or white culture, right? Or white supremacy ideology, because as a Black male, if you don't understand white culture and are able to engage in predominantly white settings, it will be challenging for you to excel. So the first thing I want to acknowledge is that as a Black male leader and educator, I've over the years have internalized and have understood the impact of white culture on my life and the life of the students that I have the pleasure to serve. But as I think about this idea of white supremacy, as a leader, I operate from this understanding that, I utilize critical race theory to really shape and form the way I lead. I recognize there is such a thing as the permanence of racism, that racism is a permanent structure in American society, right? So as a Black male leader, I start there. And then from there, recognizing that and understanding that there's critical theory out there to help us understand what we're experiencing. I'm choosing right now where I am in my level of consciousness to really lean into this idea of interest convergence, recognizing that there has not been a time in this country in which people of color or Black people have gotten anything that they need if somehow white people in this country haven't seen how it's benefited them as well. And as we've moved forward in our organization to try to move our strategic direction forward and trying to create greater access and humanize and liberate Black and brown children, I found this technique and strategy to work. One of the pieces that as our beliefs, our stated beliefs start to get closer to our actions, I'm starting to realize as a leader of a community that believes itself to be progressive and liberal that, Black lives matter until it impacts the daily lived experience of my white child in your school district, right? So now I'm really starting to lean into this idea of interest convergence a little bit more, but while not taking my foot off the gas of what I believe is necessary to interrupt these systems of white supremacy here in St. Louis Park Public Schools. And it's my hope that in St. Louis Park Public Schools, we can serve as a leader that other districts across this state and country can replicate what we're doing as it relates to isolating race in our strategic direction and mission, and truly interrupting racist systems like gifted and talented, and the marginalization and remedial focus for that we have overrepresentation of Black and brown children in, and reading support classes and things like that. It's time for us to get rid of all of that, right? And white supremacy, to your original question, is the cog that keeps all of that moving forward in our school systems.
Can I piggyback over on what he just shared? As a teacher, I've been in education for 11 years. I have to second. It's very disappointing when you have two similar students, and it's not very great to compare children, but we have two similar children, and how one will, one race does get the extra support and the other race will be diagnosed as sped, and so instead of getting, and it doesn't get that same equitable support often without that automatic label. So we're quick to label, those of color, and we yield to label the Caucasian cohorts. That's one thing that I have noticed. It's very unfortunate. I almost had a situation in my classroom where, they went to automatic. Well, he's obviously sped, and I'm like, well, no, that's not it. He's not sped because he's behind. Being behind does not mean that you're special education. So it's just working with these systems that do like to just shift. Let's just label and shift and get them out of your class and get them into a different class. That's a very slow pace, but it's not going to necessarily set them up for success or catch them up, because that's not what the system is designed to do. The system is designed to keep them at that space somewhat and just get them what's called manageable. And so that's often very frustrating. And so, but I just wanted to just piggyback on your statement. That is very true. I see that often on a yearly basis, where the shift is relatively fast for those who have a little bit more pigmentation than those who lack it.
I think white supremacy shows up in me in so many ways because of like the indoctrination of these systems that have pervaded our livelihood since birth. From birth, we're indoctrinated into white supremacy, which means that we're birthed into capitalism, which means we don't have access to quality depending on where you are, what your gender is, how you identify, and the community in which you live. And so for me, I think about tears. I think about how white men are at the top, right? And that's the way the system was designed, to continue to allow them to reign supreme. And then somewhere in there are Black men. And I have to inherently accept my misogynistic ways of thinking that are conscious and unconscious. And I have to recognize how that way of living shows up in my everyday experience. And if how I live my life is showing up in my everyday experience, how is that showing up in my teaching? How is that showing up in my leadership? How is that showing up in my decision making? How am I creating or centering other people in order to share space or cultivate space that allows other people to be at the front, that allows me to say, you know what, at times it's a Black woman talking, so let me shut up, where I'm not questioning things and I'm learning these things. Like my life and the things that I'm going through in my own healing journey are helping me see how hard life is and how education is a reflection of life. And white supremacy is the creator of hardship in a lot of ways. And the way that you combat that is you see the trauma and then you heal the trauma. And we heal. How do you heal, right? Through love. And how do you show love? You show love by being there. Like you said, Shai, like I see you, I want to understand. I may never be there, but I want to seek every day to be a more understanding. And I want to continue to give access and quality and remove the gatekeepers. So white supremacy shows up in every single facet of my being, of my teaching, of my decision-making, of my thinking, and I'll never be out of it. I'll never get to a place where it's not a part of that. And I love knowing that, because in life, like we learned, you should never feel as if you've arrived at any place, and that you should constantly be unlearning and working, and constantly healing and doing your own healing so that you can help be a part of cultivating the healing for others.
And can I just add one other piece? I'm sorry. I just want to add one other piece. I did a conversation with my school district with a plethora of teachers, and this was when I was equity. I went back into the classroom. I went from out of the classroom, in the classroom, to the counseling role, back into the classroom. And so when we're talking about oppression, and oppression topics tend to shift. So right now that we have this opportunity to talk about the race situation and trying to get other people to understand what it feels to be oppressed, I would ask them, I said, have you ever walked into a room and felt like someone was looking at you or looking down upon you for the way you're dressed? You know, eyebrows, no eyebrows, hairline, no hairline. Have you ever felt like someone just looked at you and felt like you just like, what are you doing here? And I said, let's forget about color. Let's find a different, quote unquote flaw, because other people see flaws in you. And I said, that is what we're trying to discuss today, is that when we, or also let me speak for myself, when I walk into a room, there have been times where I felt like, oh boy, here we go. I feel like somebody's gonna say something or give me a look, or because I'm in a space that is not cultivated by others that look like me, that speak like me, or dress like me, or have the same texture of hair like me. And so it becomes a challenge when we don't have that representation. And so I had a woman, I had a teacher just the other day, because I told her I needed to get a haircut. And then she was, oh, well, what are you gonna get? I said, I'm gonna get a fade. And she Caucasian, so a fade was new to her, a new vocabulary word. So, she had to write it 10 times. No, I'm just kidding. So I had to explain to her what a fade was. And so the next day I came back and I had not went and got my haircut just yet. And so she said, oh, let me see your fade. And I said, I didn't get it done yet. I said, my hair is not done. It's the same as yesterday. And so I think that it's just, some people get frustrated when they say it's not my job to teach you, but unfortunately it is our job. We have to show them and inform others how we want to be treated. It doesn't matter what color you are. You have to set the precedence on how you want to be treated and or respected. And also when it comes to cultures, we all have such different cultures that we need to have this. This is why this representation is so important. This is why I'm so glad to be here. This representation inside of the school is so important. We need all of you to have an understanding of African American culture and be able to represent and make a stand for us in the education system. We need this representation. That's all I have to say. We desperately need representation inside the school.
Marcus, I'm sorry. I gotta just come back to that. And I'm not sorry, because what you just spoke on, Shad, was identity. Like, cultural representation is about identity. And that's about how we are taught to dehumanize ourselves. Y'all, like that, we look at ourselves as good or bad or doing right or doing wrong. And we put so many burdens on our beings because we don't give ourselves the space, the grace and space to like be human. And so that shows up in how we perceive our own critical thinking of ourselves as feeling like less than. And so we put that on our students. You're acting good, you're acting bad. No, they're just being, And when we allow people the space to just be, to just exist in the present moment, there's a certain amount of acceptance that comes with that, where we could say, you have room to grow. And if you have room to grow, then I have room to grow. I was listening to this podcast. I'm really into those right now, like as I should be. And one of the things that was said was how people always tell you to talk to people like you want someone to talk to you. And they said, you know what? No, take it a step further. Don't talk to people the way you want them to talk to you. Talk to people the way you'd want them to talk to a 5-year-old child. Mm. If you heard a 5-year-old child saying, I'm ugly, I hate myself, I'm not good at this, I'm not this, you quickly combat that. You know what I'm saying? And you pour so much love into them. It's like this continuous thing where we grow our identities and we shed other beliefs and identities that were taught to us that we needed to own and burden ourselves with, when we learn how to be gentle with our beings and love ourselves in a way that allows us to love and be gentle with others,
Yeah, Shad and Abdul, where you're taking this, like for me, what you're really doing is simplifying something that I think we as educators have overcomplicated for so long, right? And as you all are talking, it reminds me that there was a time in this country before, Brown v. Board of Education and schools were desegregated with all deliberate speed, that people like my grandmother went to segregated schools in Birmingham, Alabama, where she was humanized on a daily basis and loved. And in my mind, I'm unwilling to accept that for Black children, that they have to be in separate and unequal spaces to be humanized and loved. And what would it look like to both of what you all are offering is that as educators, if we humanize our children first and foremost, right? Like I can't in my mind believe that you can put your knee on somebody's neck for over 9 minutes if you believe that person is a human being, right? There's no way you're gonna go into an Atlanta area spas and murder 8 people, 6 of them being Asian women, if you viewed them as humans. And as I think about our role as educators, right, for me, it's about trying to work to create an anti-racist democracy. Because right now we know, as we talk about this question, Brother Flynn, and I know you're trying to get us back on track, this idea of white supremacy is the foundation of our democracy. So if we're going to create an anti-racist democracy, we have to produce students, right, who can humanize people that don't look like them, who don't have the same skin color, who don't have all of the same containers that they've been put into, right? So I appreciate Shad and Abdul, what you all are doing, because really you're bringing it back to 2 simple things that Brother Asa G. Hilliard told us a long time ago, right? There's no mystery, right, on how to educate children. It's simple, right? First thing you got to do is treat them like human beings, and the second thing you got to do is love them, right? And I hear that coming out of what both of you are saying. So that's power, right? That's a word, we could, that's a word right there. So thank you for that.
Brothers, no apologies for hopping back in. I knew the question was spicy when I asked it, so I'm not surprised at all. I'm actually about to hop in myself and just put my little 2 cents in, because y'all have me thinking about a lot. I think white supremacy is when we can live in a system where expectations are completely different, right? Like, we can have schools here in Minneapolis where Black students year after year have less than 20% of them are reading at grade level, which isn't even that high of a standard, right? And these schools can be run and led entirely by white people. But we could not imagine if there was a school led by Black people that had white students who were reading at 20% or lower year after year. That school would get shut down and everybody in it would be put in jail, right? I think another way that you can easily see how white supremacy manifests, particularly here, right? I'm a transplant, and part of this is why I moved to Minnesota. But if you get on Google right now and search, what are the best places to live? Minnesota will be on the list. Go down. Minnesota will pop up on the list. Then get on another Google search and say, what are the worst places to live if you're Black? Minnesota, again, will pop up on the list. How can 2 of those same things exist at the same time? Right? If we're not white-centric and white-focused, there's no reality where those 2 things can live simultaneously. Do the same thing for education, though. When I was moving to the state of Minnesota, when I was looking for a place to teach, I Googled best places for education. I saw a list that had Minnesota ranked number 2. Then I Googled largest Black-white education achievement gaps. Minnesota was number 2 on that list as well. Right, so think about that. How can you exist in a society where those 2 things are going on at the same time and it not be based in white and like supremacy and Eurocentric? So my next question, and we touched on this a little bit, but what role does culture play in education? I think there's a lot of ways we could take that. What role does culture play in education? Shad, I want to start with you if you're ready to answer.
I was hoping, I was just like a kid in the class, like, please don't choose me, please don't choose me. And you chose me. I was like, please don't choose me. I was gonna turn my screen off. All right, so culture is so important. As I stated before, we need to be understanding that each person comes from a different location. So I'm just gonna, I got 2 minutes, so I'm gonna give you mine, okay? I'm adopted, I was in a system, my parents are Caucasian. Imagine the looks that I've received. I've been treated like a foreign exchange student at restaurants. I have, no matter where, but what most people don't understand is that, oh yes, okay, the fact that my parents are Caucasian, I got adopted. They think, oh, well, you have some kind of special space. No, no, no. Because when I go, just like no one knew before I said that I have Caucasian parents, when I go into a space, I am Black. You know, I am known as Shad Williams, who was Black. That's all they know. It's all the content they have to go off of. And so I'm immediately judged off of that. So then when you're bringing in culture, then you have my own culture, then you have culture that's placed upon me. Then you have, you know, from how someone perceives me to be. And so culture is such a challenging question. That's why I was hoping you were going to talk about me. But Black culture is okay. And we as educators, especially us, we are fighting against an uphill battle about what Black looks like. And when I say that is that if you have you know, two people, a Caucasian man and a Black man, I'll use myself, wearing the same exact clothes, clean cut haircut, and you say which one teacher and which one does something else, they're gonna obviously just jump on to that the Caucasian male is a teacher, because that's just what most people's mental culture is going to state. And so we're fighting this culture to show that we could show up in the same spaces, we could do the same exact thing, we can exceed, we can achieve. And so culture is just it's I see someone coming, Mr. Jones, he said that we've been fighting it for so long within our culture, fighting against ourselves, like Mr. Wright stated. Sometimes we beat ourselves up within our own culture. Sometimes we have outside influence that beat up on our culture. And we have to show up, we have to represent. And then unfortunately, which is unfortunate, we have to tell other people and teach other people about our culture and about who we are, about what we stand for.
Yeah, that's powerful, Shad. And you know, for me, in thinking about the question and providing a response, I'm gonna just be really simplify it. And actually, Linda Darling Hammond wrote an article that showed up in, I think it was in Forbes earlier this week, where she summarized it in a beautiful way. And I'll just read what she said, because I think that really encompasses to me the power of culture and learning. And basically, she said, children actively construct knowledge by connecting what they know to what they are learning with their cultural context, right? Creating those connections is key to learning. So as you ask, what role does culture play? Culture is key to learning, because children learn and they understand based on their lived experiences, which are immersed in culture, right? Because everybody brings their culture to the classroom. Unfortunately, right, as educators, oftentimes, you know, we don't teach necessarily the content as much as we teach who we are, which is cultural, right? So as you think about the key and what role culture plays, it plays a critical role, because we recognize that students learn by making connections through cultural context, right? So that, you know, and if you haven't had a chance to read the article, I think it's a powerful piece. And the piece for me that I appreciated about it, it was really coming out of this frame of, and I'm so sick and tired of these words, learning loss. Like, you know, she was really unpacking this idea of learning loss, and, you know, this mental model that Black, Brown, and Indigenous children are school dependent and they need public schools to survive. And actually, if we really look at it, unfortunately, Black, Brown, and Indigenous children probably have not got what they've needed from public schools over the years, right? So I'll stop there, because I know Brother Wright has plenty to add on this as well.
Y'all better quit acting like you know me. That's one thing for sure. Nah, gentlemen. I agree. I think y'all make great points. I think, to be honest, like I said, like everything is just constantly learning. So like certain beliefs are shared. Culture is important, but it doesn't play a big enough role in education in our classrooms as it should, because culture is so much bigger than like we give it credit for being. And if we look at culture as culture through the lens of white supremacy, we see that white supremacy has watered down what we believe culture to be, in a way in which we don't create spaces or cultivate spaces for collective solidarity for those groups that may share a similar culture. You know, there's so many subsets, there's so many subgroups, there's so many identifiers that could be honored more. And so we have to say, how do we take the lived experience of Black men? How do we take the lived experience of a Black woman? How do we take the lived experience of a Black gay man, of a Black disabled person who comes from poverty, or Black immigrant who comes from poverty and is disabled, right? There's a culture there. And there's trauma behind that because it's all indoctrinated through the lens of white supremacy. So we have to acknowledge that culture doesn't play a big enough role and say, well, how do we combat that? We combat that through creating spaces. That's why affinity groups are more important than ever, because we have to say, you know what? I can't speak on that experience, and nor should I feel like I should be able to speak on that experience. Y'all need y'all time. And then we can collectively come together after being able to pour in people who truly get it. And then come back in spaces where we bring these cultures together more and more. And we say, how can we show up in a way that honors your truth and honors your culture, and recognizing just how culture exists on this spectrum, you know? So that's my 35 cents.
So I'm gonna go ahead and hop in. I'm gonna switch up the order a little bit. I'm gonna jump down to this question. It says, why? And this one is, personal. Again, I'm the executive director of Black Men Teach, so I want to hear these answers. I'm about to be taking notes. Why is increasing recruitment, retention, and empowerment of Black male educators needed?
So
Okay, I'll go
do you have a
first.
particular order that you wanted
Oh,
us
okay.
to go in, or?
I got caught up reading the chat. Let's go with AB on this one. He's the one who would have been next in the order.
All right. It's important because we matter. I mean, we matter. That just is so true, in the sense that, how do I even know I matter if I'm not even allowed in that space, or so very few of us are in that space? So then there's few of us that are in these spaces feel the need to show up a particular way. And you need other people who look like you to tell you it's okay to be you. Like, go inside of yourself and figure out more of who you are. One of the most powerful events I ever went to was back in 2017. It was with this brother, Sharif El Mekki. Like, I don't know, I know a lot of people know this man, and brothers like Michael Walker, like a brother on this call right now that's been doing so much great work, who taught me it's okay. Like, you didn't grow up in the suburbs. So you don't even gotta feel like, oh yeah, Dr. Walker, my bad. So don't even feel like you need to show up as anything other than you in this space. So like, I learned like very early on, like, all right, cool, I could wear my earrings, you know what I'm saying? Like, my headshot could have my earrings in them. Why can't I show my tattoos? Why can't I wear my tennis shoes when I do an event? Why can't I be me? And so then I'm in Philly with all of these Black male educators from all across the country. And I'm telling y'all, it's one thing about a Black man, they know how to get fly, right? And so I'm just seeing it, and it made me feel like I could own me even more, like just from seeing it. There's just so much power that comes in just seeing so many versions of people who look like you, who don't all do what you do. There are Black skateboarders, there are Black poets, there are Black artists, there are Black people who live so many different experiences. But when we have so few of us showing up, we feel the need to be this specific way, all going back to identity. And so it's important because we matter, and all of us have anecdotes for how that has shown up in our own lived experience and how we see ourselves.
Yeah, that's it right there. I mean, as I I'm smiling because in my mind, I was thinking a similar response. And to me, it's like, so I'm okay. And it's cool for me to dribble your basketball, to throw your football, to do this, do that, but it's not okay for me to educate your children, right? And it's okay for you to paint this picture of me, right, in the media of this, that, and the other, but it's not okay for you to paint this picture of me as an educator. So I think it's critically important to have Black male educators, because we need to interrupt the mental models that society has about what the role of the Black male is in American society. And unfortunately, right now, society will want to paint a picture that Black males, it's okay for us, like I said, to dribble basketballs, throw footballs, hit baseballs, do all of these things. But when it comes to being scholars, academic, and educating the future of this country to create an anti-racist democracy, right? Hold on a second. We don't know if we want that. And matter of fact, let's be systemic and strategic from a white supremacy standpoint. And let's make sure from a very early age, we turn these Black males off to education, right? We don't ever want them to get excited about being educators. So let's make sure that their experience going through our pre-K-12 educational systems aren't one of love and humanity. Let's make sure it's one of fear and intimidation so that they never want to come back. Because God forbid that we have Black male educators in schools offering a multiple perspective to students about the world. So because we matter, like Abdul said, because we matter, right? So I appreciate that.
I had to catch myself getting emotional on that question, because I was thinking about the I don't know if everyone's seen the TED Talk by Rita Pearson. Let me correct myself. Dr. Rita Pearson. She is now deceased. She says that every child deserves a champion, and I feel like we need to be in these spaces because we need to be that champion. We have to represent. When we as African Americans step onto a campus and we absorb these roles, we take on so many responsibilities, and often unapologetically take on these responsibilities, and we are these kids' champions to show that you can do so much more than what these stigmas have placed upon us. I'll be honest, I'm not the greatest at basketball, so I don't fit the status quo, but I can read a book, and I'm just so thankful for that, and I'm so thankful to be a part of this panel, because we not only do we deserve to be here, but other children that will feel oppressed deserve to see us, and we deserve to represent and show that you can be whatever you want to be. And so not only do we deserve to be their champion, they deserve us as champions to show that we can do this. And I know that, like, for me, like I stayed on my campus being the first, which was a shock to me, being the first African-American teacher on the campus since the school was open. When parents found out that I was on campus, and to have my 4 kids out of my 22 are of color, and the rest are 4 Black, 1 Hispanic, and the rest are Caucasian. And to be able to be in that space and to show these kids, my second graders, that I'm your teacher, and for them to just kind of have this like aha moment, like, what? You're my teacher? Because they'd never seen it before. And it was a shock to me, because I was like, what do you mean? Because I haven't been in Minnesota all my life. And so just to be in this space and to show that we need to show up and we need to represent. And so and those of you who are out there who are in this pathway to be education, I just want to inspire you and encourage you to please stick to it. Please stick to it, because we so desperately need you to help and to show them that they can be anything they want to be, despite whatever the status quo is placed upon them. So,
and know that this work is going to be hard. Like, don't get into this, don't get into this thinking that just because you're there in this space that somehow you have some right or you're deserving of something. No. Always center the babies. I think Nafisa Muhammad just said that in the chat. The babies deserve to be centered. And that is why we have these spaces. Whenever you have space, how do you cultivate more space for others in a way that we center others?
So I knew that would be the perfect question to end my question or my portion of question asking with, just because all of us have so many anecdotes. What I want to do now is I want to open it up for audience Q&A. So what you'll do is you'll send me a chat with your question, and I'll go ahead and I'll pick the questions that are probably the most unique from the ones that we've answered, and then I'll ask the panelists from there. While we wait on questions to roll in on my end, I'll kind of add a little bit of narrative to the conversation as well. Because I'm a numbers person. I think one thing that got skipped in this are the numbers, right? So quantitatively, we know that Black students do better with Black teachers in the classroom, right? And we see it short term. We see that a Black student in a Black-led classroom is more likely to enroll in a talented and gifted program. They're less likely to be suspended or expelled. They have higher attendance, you even see higher grades, right? But I think the most compelling numbers are the long-term benefits that Black teachers have on Black students. So we know if a Black student has a Black teacher by third grade, they're 13% more likely to go to college. If you had a second teacher by third grade, a second Black teacher, it's not an additive impact, it's multiplicative. Now we're talking about a 32% increase in their likelihood of enrolling in college. Significant, substantial. One Black teacher in between third and fifth grade decreases the likelihood of low-income students across the board dropping out of high school by 29%. In that same study, for the Black boys who were in the lowest income quantile, we saw 39% less likely to drop out of high school, right? That's by having one Black teacher between third and fifth grade. We were talking about the benefits and the impact that Black male teachers have, but in the state of Minnesota, there aren't very many at all. In the state, there's about 65,000 teachers. They don't stratify by race and gender, but they say 1.4% of those teachers are Black. I think that leaves you at about 890. You do a conservative estimate from that 890, that leaves you about 320 Black male teachers in the state of Minnesota. That's half of 1%. Half of 1% of the teachers of the state of Minnesota are Black men. And we know that there are significant benefits of having Black men in front of our students, however, we don't exist. There's 3 of them on the call right now, and all of us are unicorns. So I see I got a couple questions. The first one is, how do we get more Black teachers when we do not have Black males in the teacher preparation program? I'm gonna open this up to the panelists, whoever's ready to go first.
Marcus, we talked about this question. You and I talked about this question when we met. Yeah, that is a good question. Superintendent, what you got?
Oh, okay. I mean, I can go first. I have a response. Shah, did you have something, or you want me to go first? No. Okay. So for me, as I think about, and I literally I was just having this conversation yesterday as well. And for me, how do we get more Black male educators? It starts in K-12, pre-K-12 education, right? In my opinion, and it starts by us making sure that we're creating learning experiences that are humanizing and show care for Black males going through our systems. Because if a student has a negative experience, as they're less likely to want to come back and work in that profession. At least that's my opinion. So what needs to happen right now, as we're thinking about our current, like what's currently in the pipeline, as we think about, teacher prep programs, we got to make sure that the educators coming out of these programs are working or emerging in their racial consciousness, their cultural relevance, and that they're showing up in schools maybe not fully armed, right? Because you can't be fully armed until you get in there, but with the will, right? You know, because your skill and knowledge, you can develop that, but with the will, okay, to ensure that students will be humanized in those classroom spaces. And I believe as that occurs, right, and then as education systems, as we start to create more pathway programs, and we built those in, and I know Dr. Leanne Stevens is on this call, and she's helping us lead a pathway program here in St. Louis Park, where we'll be producing future educators who will, in high school, have programming where they're not only learning about, you know, how to facilitate learning, but learning to do so in a racially conscious lens under this framework of critical race theory, right? So I think the more we can do that, the larger numbers of Black males we'll see, because if I'm a Black male in high school and I get a chance to have a class with Dr. Leanne Stevens and learn about critical race theory and learn about education, that's gonna get me excited. And I know, Brother Flynn, you've been a part of that work with us through Black Males Teaching. I appreciate your leadership in that area. So I think those are some of the things that we'll need to do. It's not like, you know, snap your fingers. We're in this for the long term, right? We're trying to build for eternity. We're not trying to just solve something overnight, right? So I think we need to think K-12. We need to think about current teacher prep programs, and we need to make sure the educators we're producing out of those programs now are coming out prepared with the will, right? And I recognize the skill and knowledge will come as you have opportunities to get reps, but if you don't got the will, if you don't believe Black, brown, and indigenous children are humans, right? And you're afraid of them because you've never been in a relationship with one before you were in charge of them in your classroom, that's a problem, right? So those are just some of the thoughts that I have.
I think that this question is so multifaceted, right? I want to just start with like recognizing just how it starts with money. like give me money, bro. Like that's like I had to take a whole year off of college. Like the greatest stress that I had was money. Like my entire college career, the decisions, the circles, the everything. Like, what about the people who didn't even know that they could do something with their life, or didn't have purpose, that are working these 9 to 5 or overnight jobs, but they got it in their heart to love these babies, but they can't afford to go back to school. What about the teacher in the preparation program that is thinking about what can I afford to do long-term so I could get my mom out the neighborhood, so I could get my brothers and sisters, they depend on me. My little brothers and sisters depend on me. If they depend on me, I can't do that with $45,000 a year, first year, and then incremental increases to $46,000 to $47,000. My dog, Roos, brother Raymond Johnson, he told me about this amazing teacher he works with, Mr. Ed Davis. Like, I've heard this man's name a billion times over. If it were not for different programs that could put people in a position to go back to school and say, look, you Black people, y'all didn't work for free in this country. Y'all done did that. You know what I'm saying? This country is built because of y'all free work, right? So now let us pay you. Quit looking at it as being equal. My lived experience ain't the same as that white boy down the street. My lived experience ain't the same as that kid that grew up in the suburbs. So recognize that when we're talking about the types of scholarships that we want to give, recognize that when we're in a position to create scholarships or grants or put people in a position, like recognize that everybody's situation ain't the same. You know, if all you got to do, if you have the privilege of just being able to focus on school, man, you don't even understand how good you got it, because that ain't the case for so many of us. So my answer, Brother Marcus Flynn, show me the money. Facts.
Well,
You
Mr.
know,
Marcus,
Happy. Actually, let me go ahead and answer that right there, because it's directed to me, even though I was going to ask the question, but I think it's perfect that he brought that back to me. Because, I mean, this is the work that I do on a day-to-day basis. That's the question that guides me from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, right? How do we do this work? And I have a long answer, but I think if we want to break it down into the shortest piece, I think it's like Brother Osai said, one, we have to get in front of people at the K-12 level, particularly at that 9-12, make sure that we have some influence in them to understand truly what it means to be a teacher. the answer that these brothers gave around why they're in education are important, because none of those things had to do with the ABC 1, 2, 3s, which young people immediately go to when they're thinking about a career in education. They're talking about the impact, honestly, the privilege it is to be in front of a classroom, particularly a classroom of Black students, right? And what that means. Also, too, we have to recognize the school for Black boys can be traumatic, right? In Minnesota, Black students are suspended or expelled at 8 times the rate of white students, right? I think 1 in 10 Black students will miss a day of school due to disciplinary actions. Black students represent 10% of the population, but 42% of the discipline incidents, right? So if you are going to this place, you're not represented, constantly penalized and punished for being who you are, why the hell would you want to come back and work there? And so I think part of it is we get in front of these people and let them know and let them understand, like, this is the impact that you can have long-term on people. Some of the numbers I brought up. But I think the money piece is the next part of that conversation. We could talk about the why, but right now, I don't think you can say, I can't look someone in the face and say, it is a fiscally responsible decision to become a teacher. So right now, I got more numbers for you. The average starting teacher salary nationally is about $44,000. White education majors on average come out with about $25,000 in debt, which is basically a 60% debt to income ratio, right? Is what it is. Black students on average nationally come out with an additional $25,000 of debt. So now we're talking about $50-something thousand in debt versus $44,000 of a starting teacher salary. So now you're at 120% debt to income ratio. How do I look somebody in the face and say, this is what you need to go do? Like AB said, you got to take off years of school. You got to do all of this. Talk to a Black male teacher and ask them when they decided to become a teacher and what that path was like. I guarantee they ain't gonna say when I was in 4th grade. Ask a white teacher when they decided to be a teacher. It's gonna be 3rd grade. For me, I was 23. I was in grad school to be an epidemiologist, right? And most of our stories are like that. And so I think one thing you all can do, if you want to support, Black Men Teach right now has a bill in the legislature. It's coming on the House side. We got concluded in the Senate's omnibus bill. But I need people to show community support that says we want this $750,000 appropriation to go through on the House side so that this money can go to Black Men Teach. And I promise you, every single cent of that $750,000 can go to people who look like Shad and Abdul. It's gonna go right to their pockets. So I want to tell people that if you want to be a teacher and that's what you want to do, that's what you feel like your passion, your purpose is, make sure you do it, come out debt free. That's the conversation. That's the only conversation I want to have with these men. And that's the work I'm doing. And so if you're interested, if you really want to show support, you want to put in a letter, get my email, send me, because I'm working on that tomorrow. That's how I'm waking up. So I've been getting inundated with questions. I'm gonna go with this one though, because it's right here in front of me. Unfortunately, it looks like this will be the last one, but I do think it's one that's tangible and it's practical and people can take something away with. It says, what can educators and allies do to support Black male educators? Again, we'll open up to whoever feels like they have an answer. Take your time. We all teachers, so we used to wait.
I'm not going first this time. That's just what it's going to be. So,
Shai, you want to go?
Oh no, Superintendent, please, by all means, please go first.
Well, I'm gonna keep it simple. You know, I appreciate the question, and I, you know, let me say it like this. For me, it's really simple. You know, what can people do? They can do their own work. They can interrupt. They can interrupt racism when they see it happening in schools, right? They cannot see a Black colleague or a colleague of color experiencing racism within the school and feel bad about it, but not say something in the meeting to interrupt. And then after the meeting, go to them and you know, express, you know, just how disappointed, you know, you are in your colleagues and what happened, right? So for me, it's about what allies and educators that want to see increased numbers of Black males in the profession, what they can do is A, do their own work, continue to work on their own racial consciousness and cultural relevance. And then secondly, when you see something, say something, right? Interrupt the aggressions that are occurring against Black men. And here's the thing, this is about Black men. I almost feel like, and I know Marcus, you're about Black men's teach, but like I see some of the most aggression occurring against Black women in education settings, but we can talk about that another time, right? But for me, it's about let's do your own work, and then when you see something, say something, interrupt, right? Like I'd rather you not have a Black Lives Matter sign in your yard. Like I'm gonna drive home tonight, and I got almost on my block, everybody got a doggone Black Lives Matter sign in their yard, but when it's really going down, are you really gonna stand up and be there for me? So let's take the sign. I'd rather you not have a sign and have my back when something happens than have that sign and just be out here playing. Stop performing, right? So what you can do is stop performing and start getting into action.
Look, I did this statement. It says, be the wind in my back, not the spit in my face. And so I like what you said, interrupting racism. I think that, and I piggyback on that. He said, don't see it and then come to me later on and go, man, I'm sorry about that happened to you. Because let me tell you, that has happened to me. So that's why I was laughing, because I was like, dang, here we go. My lived experience, my trauma is showing up, and I'm gonna laugh because that's what we do in the African American community. We laugh at these traumas. But it's a serious thing. And so we be supportive. That's all I can say. Be supportive of understanding. And if you see something going on, please just address it. But I also want to lean on this one. Don't come to us feeling bad for us. Because one thing, let me say this. Don't feel bad for me. Don't feel bad for me because I'm Black. I call myself chocolate. I like being chocolate. So don't come to me feeling bad for me, saying, "Oh, woe is you." No, don't feel bad for me. Don't feel bad for me. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of my culture. I'm proud of my skin. But I just want you to just be supportive as you would, others. And I'll just put that. Just be supportive of me as you would of others. I had this woman come up to me right after this Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd thing occurred. And I was at Sam's Club. And this lady came up to me and was like right in my face. I thought she was an employee. She was like, "Hi." And I was like, "Hi." She's like, "I just want to make sure you're having a good day." And I was like, "Please don't do this to us. Please don't do this. You don't got to do that. We want to just be treated. We want to just be normal. Just normal. You don't have to feel bad and pity us. You don't have we just want to just be normal." And that's why the Black Lives Matter thing, it's not necessarily Black Lives Better. Same Black Lives Matter. Yes, everybody else does matter, but right now the topic is African Americans. We want you to know that we matter, and we want to be supported. And fads tend to change. And right now it's us. And we want to talk about us, and we want us to get supported. And but past time there was Jenny Craig, and everybody want to lose weight. Right now we want to talk about us. We want to talk about the African Americans, about the lack of support, the lack of genuine support that has not been always or consistently provided to us. So that's my answer.
I want to kind of say this poem real quick. It's by William Cowper, Pity for Poor Africans. He says, I am shocked at the purchase of slaves and fear those who buy them and sell them as knaves. What I hear of their hardships, their tortures and groans is almost enough to draw pity from stones. I pity them greatly, but I must be mum, for how could we do without sugar and rum? Right? For how could we do without sugar and rum? There's a different, it gets to a point where I don't even want your support no more. You either for the abolishment of all oppressive systems or you're not. There is no in between. You cannot stand on the fence, and you standing on the fence is already telling me what side you're on. And that ain't you're not with us. It's bigger than the performative acts. It's a level of compassion. And that level of compassion is grounded in recognizing that this stuff comes at a sacrifice. Because we're sacrificing our mental and emotional well-being by being in these classrooms. Like Brother Osai said, Black women are 1,000 times more traumatized in these same spaces than us as Black men. So how do we continue to sacrifice for something so much bigger than us? We do that by recognizing we're sacrificing already. So what are you gonna bring to the table? How will you be a co-conspirator? What are you willing to sacrifice? And if you're not willing to make true sacrifice, then keep your private messages to the side, bro. Like, I don't want those. There was a committee I was a part of, like I'm a organization I'm a part of, and this was before George Floyd passed. It was when Ahmaud Arbery passed. When he was murdered by police, abolished the police. Y'all already know that's what I'm for. When I didn't hear a response from this national organization, I went into the group. I don't even go on Facebook. Like, I ain't even, in the whole, I go in there and I say, how come there's no response on Ahmaud Arbery? If I'm a part of an organization that's not willing to take a stance on something, like, or that don't feel like they should take a stance on this, I don't want to be a part of this no more. And I got so many private messages, right? And I'll never forget one private message I got. It was from a white woman who recently adopted a Black child. And the private message was like, I'm just so proud of you. You're so right, and all of this. And I was having a conversation with somebody really close to me earlier about the same thing. And it's like, people always got their private messages, but that could have been your Black baby that you just adopted. So what are you willing to sacrifice? And it needs to be more public than this private message. It's not about support. It's about being co-conspirators.
I think that's as powerful of a way to end it as possible. Brothers, I really appreciated this conversation. And I'm anticipating that everyone else in the audience has as well. This has been a very, very, very active audience. I've never been on a panel and seen this many comments, this many chats throughout the duration. And so, I can see why. You all have very compelling messages. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Jonathan Jones, the event sponsor, creator, and let him close it out for us.
Thank you.
Wow, Black excellence, Black excellence. There's a lot to unpack here. I want to first thank all the panel members for coming tonight and sharing their wisdom and their experience with the audience. I'm looking forward to re-listening to this whole entire session, because there's a lot I missed trying to monitor the chat window and everything. But I know there's a lot to unpack, and we will be sharing some additional information and recordings of this presentation in the very near future. So I'm going to go ahead and share. We want to close out, do a couple things. We have a few opportunities that I would like to share with the participants, and we'd like to also make that we get feedback from everybody, because I do see this happening again in the very near future, because like the brother said tonight, we matter. We matter. Our voice matters. And I want to be about anything that I can that relates to the recruitment, retention, and empowerment of Black male educators specifically. So if you want to join us in the work that we're doing, please reach out to each one of us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one last time and share a few opportunities. For those of you who are pre-service teachers, these opportunities, these are employment opportunities for the summer in the next couple of months. There's a new nonprofit called Relentless Academy, Twin Cities-based nonprofit that's dedicated to providing STEM activities during the summer months. It runs from June 14th to August 14th. You're going to want to send your resume to Nikosha Wynn, and her information is provided. This entire slide deck will be emailed to all the participants later this evening. So you'll have all the links that you need to reach out to follow up on these opportunities. Also, I will be running a summer program for St. Paul Public Schools for 5th and 6th graders at Murray Middle School. I am looking to hire staff as well. So please reach out to me and send me your resumes. My program will be running June 21st through July 29th.
I just think it's so dope that you got your son right there with you, bro. Like, that's just the most elite stuff ever. That's just real.
He's in it too.
I know.
Next, I want to share The name Sharif El-Mekki came up several times during this presentation. Sharif is the executive director of the Center for Black Educator Development in Philadelphia. This brother he's amazing. He's another amazing brother. So I wanted to share some of the work that he's doing. He's looking to hire high school students, college age students, and also career changers this summer to come work during his in-person and virtual opportunities that they're doing in Philadelphia. So you definitely want to reach out to them. So any high school students who are on the call, any college students currently, check out, you're going to send your resume to Shania Terrell. Her information is included in the deck. The summer session will be June 21st, July 29th. You want to check out the work that Brother El-Mekki is doing. I love listening to him and just seeing some of the stuff that he's doing. So please check him out. And the last opportunity that I'm going to share, there's a whole host. That's another thing is I don't want you to leave this session thinking that if you are a Black male educator in particular, you are not alone. You are not alone. You may be the one Black male educator at your school or maybe even at your district, but know that there are several Black male educators in the state of Minnesota and across this country that can support you in the work that you're doing. The last one is there is a Black and Brown Male Educator Fair on April 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. You'll need to RSVP, and that's through the National Association of Black Male Educators. Ready?
Yep.
And finally, I will be remiss in not talking a little bit. These gentlemen who are on the call, a few of them were highlighted in the first issue of Uplift publication. So I'm gonna let my son tell you a little bit about Uplift and what's the mission of this publication. And then we will close out with feedback and enjoy the rest of our evening.
Okay, join the movement. Uplift is dedicated to celebrating Black male educators across the USA. For us, by us, combining vivid visuals and reflections is combating oppresses experience through this innovative affinity movement.
Nice job. Thank you, sir. All right. So the big picture with Uplift is in the next 10 years, I would like to highlight minimally 400 Black male educators across the country. I want to connect, affirm, and reflect on the work that we do. I want to create a fund that supports educators, and I want to collaborate on the Black male educator pipeline, not only here in Minnesota, but also across the country. So if you'd like to know more information, you can apply. We are looking for Black male educators. If you are pre-service or in-service teachers, apply for the second edition of Impact, or excuse me, of Uplift, which the next cohort will be called the Impact cohort, which will be our second cohorts. You can become a sponsor, you can donate, or you can purchase a copy of the publication on Amazon. So we will close out there, and I'm gonna stop sharing. Again, I'd like to put a shout out to Hamline University, Dr. Neil and Carlos Sneed for sponsoring this event. And we will close out with a poll. And also thank you again to the panel members who were able to give of their time and share their insights and their experiences tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
So please stay on and take a few minutes and answer. I'm gonna launch the poll and answer a few questions before we close out for the evening.
So now we will be doing these 10 questions. Okay. I think we're ready.
And we only have a few questions, so we value your input. We definitely would like to improve upon this event and work on doing another one, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, oh. Okay.
Right. Couple more seconds for this question.
Wait, how are they getting?
Because it's posted. All right,
Okay.
excellent. I'm gonna end this poll and start the next one.
Ready? And okay.
All right. And then here is our next one. Yes, you may. Stop sharing. And close. All right, with that, we will conclude for the evening. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Be on the lookout. In the next couple of days, we'll be sending some information. There'll probably be another little feedback form for you and additional information and contacts for these gentlemen to be able to connect with these men in the community. Again, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Huh?